Hi guys, today I have the last page in my Cocoa Daisy Traveler's Notebook insert to show you, and if you stick around to the end I'm going to walk you through the rest of the pages that I did in this Traveler's Notebook off camera. Now for this page I was sort of inspired by the blues and the circles in the background paper, so that paper is already printed onto the page, which is ideal. It means there's not that much work that I have to do, but I did love the blues of my photo, but I also love how there's that little peak of yellow in the sunrise there, so I'm gonna use both the blue and the yellow from the kit in here, and I want to kind of make a really textured circle heavy page. So I am pulling out some of the pattern papers and I've got 3 different sized punches, so I'm going to punch all 3 sizes from my pattern papers, and I'm going to use those punched pieces to layer up and create some real dimension on the page. So as I punch each paper, I'm just going to create 3 little piles of these circles just in the sizes that I've punched out, and that way when I'm finished I'll have a pile to create from. Now there was also this glassine bag in the kit, and I thought I would punch some circles from that as well, because it's going to add a really nice transparent texture to the page and just dull down some of these brighter colours a little bit, so they're not competing with my photo too much. But as you'll see, I attempted to punch it and it did not punch well. I'll admit that my punches are quite old, so they're probably not as sharp as they could be, and so here I attempt to do another technique. I thought, well, if I back it front and back with pattern paper, that should give the punch something to hold on to and punch through, but these papers in the kit are really thick, so even without the glassine bag I cannot punch through 2 pieces of the pattern paper. So I gave up on the glassine bag for a little bit. I'm going to come back to it. I went and looked through my metal dies, found some that were the same size, luckily, and used those to, not punch out, I guess, cut out the glassine bag. So I do end up with my little transparent circles like I wanted. I just could not do them with my punches. So that's a little hint there. Yeah, it was a bit of a fail, but I'm glad that I persisted, because you can see I was a bit worried that that darker blue pattern was going to really overpower the page, and same with the yellow pattern. Although there are yellows in my photo, I don't want the patterns on the page to compete too much with the focal point, which is my photo. So the glassine bag really helps to dull down some of those brighter colours. Now what I've done is just layered up the circles. I started with my larger ones and I've layered 3 or 4 layers onto those circles, and then I had a few of these smaller ones left over, so I did those as well. I was only using a tiny little bit of glue on those, just enough to hold them together, because I wanted to stitch this all together. Again, it just gives me another element of texture on the page, and to make sure that all of those circles stay firmly stuck together. So I ran that through my sewing machine all in one long straight line and then just split them apart. And then as I was splitting them, I made sure to rough up some of those edges a little bit, fold them over, crinkle the glassine just to give it a little bit of texture. And now I can go ahead and place them onto the page. Now you can see I made way more than I needed, but I wasn't quite sure where I was going with this at the time. So always better to have too many than not enough, and they will make cute little embellishments for something else, I'm sure. Now it worked out really nicely that 2 of my smaller punches was the same width as a larger one, so I'm easily able to create a grid on this page, and it also worked out really nicely that that grid could hold a photo in the middle of it. So I played around with having all of the blues at the top and the yellows towards the bottom, the way that they are in the photo, but in the end I think it looks more balanced to spread that colour out around the page. So I just replaced a few of those. I replaced some of the larger ones with 4 smaller ones. Just play with it until it looks nice to your eye, and then I stuck all those down and I can work on my photo. Now I am just making sure to sort of rough those up a little bit, because they have been flattened as I was gluing them back down, and they'll get flattened again when they're in the book anyway, but I just want to create a few little folds so that some of that texture does stay in there. Because my photo is going to go over the fold of the book, I am just marking where that is going to happen. I will eventually cut the photo, but I want to do some stamping on my photo first, and I just needed a little mark so that I could make sure that my stamping isn't going to go over where the cut line's going to be, basically. I didn't plan this out, I just risked it, and it worked out really nicely that the two words in my title are going to be on one side and then two on the other, and that worked out really nicely. Actually, there's three on the other side, but I did manage to split that perfectly. That alpha is one of my favorites. It's perfect for traveler's notebooks. I really enjoy using it, and it's stamped really nicely on my photo. My Moonlight white ink is getting a little bit on the dry side, but I kind of like the texture that gave the stamping, so I didn't worry about over stamping it. I just left it as it is. So I've stuck down the left hand side, and on the right I just wanted to add a couple more of those circles. I hadn't planned on that, but it was looking a little unbalanced, so I'm going to add a few on this side, and I'm just working out where I want to put them, and I'm going to glue those down in place. One of them is just sort of sticking there, the top yellow one, because I've shoved it under the photo there, and the others I'm just going to add a little bit of glue to the photo, stick them in place, and then I can glue everything down all in one go. Now, I hadn't planned on adding any journaling, so I hadn't actually allocated any space for it, but there's this little space under the title, and I don't need to add too much journaling, so I'm going to add just a couple of lines in here in a black gel pen. Don't mind the black because there is that darker patch on my photo there. So that's that page all done, and that's the last page in this notebook.
So like I mentioned, that was the last page to fill in this insert, so I thought I'd give you a quick flip through of it, because I've only done a couple of process videos in here. The rest of the time I have just spent playing, so I still haven't filled in up here, and because I didn't stamp the first date I'm probably not going to do dates. This will end up just being a May insert. Everything in here is sort of from this month, so I guess there's no reason I can't change what I do and put May. But there was a process video for this page last week on Sunday, I think. I will link any videos that I can up here at the top. This was a fun page to do. The kit was very yellow and blue themed, so it was nice to split that up with a little bit of pink. And is it going to focus on here? I love the texture of using that texture paste with that stencil. I've used that stencil a lot. I really loved it, and I love the texture on this. It's just so much fun. So this was a page I really love. I love the little charm. It hasn't been a pain. I did this page reasonably towards the start of this insert, and it hasn't been a pain having this little charm in here at all. It is actually quite flat, so I just love that sort of little dangliness of the page. Here was a super quick page, and what I mean is super quick is this pattern was already printed onto the page. So literally all I did was stick down my photo, add a few die cuts, my title, and some journaling. So literally a 5-minute page, and I love how that turned out. I think that was one of my favorite parts about the notebook, is having the pre-printed patterns on the page. Did have this like starting point for where I could go to for the design, and in one of those other videos I did mention that I pulled out a bunch of pages, so this is definitely not how many pages are in the notebook. I pulled out a whole pile. Some of them I've stuck back to back so that you can't see the stamping through it. I just made it work for me, so this was how many pages I wanted in here. It's the right sort of thickness for me, and wow, to be fair, I've still got a ton of this kit left over, but this was just a really fun project to have a finished notebook. A little bit something different. Definitely didn't film a process video for this one because it took quite a while, but more of a sort of journal heavy page. Just some cute little photos of Shane and Lil, and just some journaling to go along with that. I started off by sticking down my photo with this washi tape, then added a bunch of die cuts. I did some stamping with that really awesome stamp set. and then filled in all the gaps with journaling. When I was done, there were a few sort of odd gaps in here as well, so I punched some little hearts out of one of the pages. Wasn't the pattern paper from the kit, it was one of the pages that I had pulled out of the notebook, had these blue patterns on it, so I punched those out and stuck them in. If you have seen my Patreon announcement or have joined my Patreon page, you'll recognize these silly selfies. This was just a fun page because I had this misprint of this photo. I printed one for my layout and it didn't work right, so I printed a second one. So I had these in here and I thought it was just a fun page to just document a fun time, to be honest. I created a little tag here with some hidden journaling just by taping around 3 sides. Then the tag has a little home to go into, and I added a bunch of die cuts. I really loved this little mason jar drink, and so that became the basis for the title for my page, because I thought, yeah, after all the work that I've put into this, I definitely deserve a drink. So this was one of the pages where I didn't stick it back to back, and you can see the stamping came through a little bit under there, but the other page is so busy that it doesn't really worry me. This is, oops, the first page that I did the process video for, using the wood veneer and cutting off the parts that weren't needed, so that was a really fun page, still one of my favorites. The page we've just seen. And I did do another sort of journaly page in here, just so the other one wasn't a complete random page in here. I thought it was kind of fun to have the 2 different types of pages in this notebook. I'll be honest, I don't do these sorts of pages very often, but they are a fun way to use up the die cuts, and a few of these bits I cut out of the journaling cards from the memory kit. This one is another one I cut out and added some puffy stickers. The fun thing about having a notebook this sort of small with this few pages in it is I'm not worried about adding some of these thicker elements because the book's not going to get too bulky to work with. And then the last page in here, I mean, is it even a notebook from Diane if it doesn't have sequins in it? So I created a sequin shaker page. This is going to be so hard to see on camera. This is sort of a tulle and it has these polka dot, sort of glittery polka dots on it. I just cut out a piece that was larger than my page. I've lined it up against the spine and really carefully run it through the sewing machine as best as I could. Before I closed it up, I did stick a whole pile of sequins in there. This was a fun little mix that Michelle from the Stamp Spot sent me, and then closed it up. I did have to spend a lot of time moving the sequins so that I could stick my photo down with these labels, and I did stick them down with some multi-matte medium so that it is stuck through the tulle onto the page, so the sequins do have to go around it, which ends up keeping them at the top and the bottom. So that worked out nicely. The background of the page again was that stencil. I just placed it all over the page and used a blending tool and some distress ink just to get this pretty pink. Again, the kit was like really blue and yellow themed, so I super enjoyed adding these extra colors to it. So I've got the washi tape. I used that little sunshine piece that I cut out of the frame here. Just stuck that down again with some multi-matte medium. It is like super thin wood veneer, so it worked really nicely just sticking that in. It's well stuck down, but it actually bends with the page, so I'm not worried about it popping off at all. And the rest of my title was just made up with labels and some fun stamping. So that is the end of this insert. You can see the stitching through on that page, so when I did stitch it, I pulled that cover back. So I'm only stitching through one page, but I'm so pleased with how this insert turned out. This was such a fun project to work on this month. Super loved that kit from Cocoa Daisy, and like I said, I have so much of it left. I definitely will be adding quite a bit back into my stash, but this notebook is now done. So thank you for watching.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you want to keep watching, don't forget to check out my Patreon page. There are even more videos over there. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next time. Bye!